What is going on, everybody? Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Donovan Mitchell had 45 points last night against the Clippers, and he looks like the next superstar in the NBA, and we will talk more about it after the bumper. What's going on, everybody? Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and drop your comments in the chat. We will be interactive. Now, Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz came away with a win over the over the Los Angeles Clippers, 112 to 109. Donovan dropped 45 points last night, 35 of them coming in the second half. He was simply unguardable. It doesn't matter if you threw PG at him, Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Kawhi Leonard. It did not matter. Donovan was going to have his way no matter who was guarding him. He was that dominant last night, and there was nothing the Clippers could do. And it got me to thinking, is Donovan Mitchell the next superstar in the league? There's so much young talent. Like the crop of young talent in the NBA is ridiculous. And Donovan Mitchell was part of that young nucleus, young core to go along with guys like Devin Booker and Jamal Murray and Zion Williamson and John Morant. And, like name your favorite young guy. Like all of those guys are in there. And the next crop, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, it'll end up being Cade Cunningham. That'll be in this year's draft, probably be the number one overall pick. And Donovan Mitchell was asserting himself as the Dwayne Wade 2.0. If Dwayne Wade were to play in this version of the NBA, or if Dwayne Wade was drafted into this version of the NBA, he would look like Donovan Mitchell. The athleticism, the size, the skill, the handle. Donovan, the thing that Dwayne Wade didn't have that Donovan has is the shot. And that's the thing. But if Dwayne Wade was drafted and played in this era, he would have the shot because that's what everybody does. Everybody shoots, besides unless you're named Ben Simmons. But Dwayne Wade was dominant in his era. And so if we believe he would be dominant in this era, then he would have the three-point shot like every other guy. But we're not here to talk about Dwayne Wade. We're here to talk about Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. And the serious question is, do you guys believe the Jazz can not only just win this series, but be a serious title contender? Now, I know most of us, if you're like me, believe Brooklyn is the team to beat in the NBA. Brooklyn is just too star-driven, too, front-loaded, heavyweights. Like, they're just simply amazing. But can Utah actually compete with Brooklyn? Well, first, I know they got to beat the Clippers. And the Clippers, they are who they are. For some reason, they don't get up or play with a sense of urgency, a level of intensity until they're like down 0-2, until the series is on the line, until like they actually have to play. You can't go down 0-2 against this team. I understand the first two games are on the road, but you cannot go down 0-2 to the Utah Jazz like you did to Luka in the Dallas Mavericks, because the Jazz are not the Mavericks. Let me repeat. The Jazz are not the Mavericks. This Jazz team is for real. This Jazz team has some ballers. This Jazz team can really, really play. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This Jazz team is full of some guys that can go out there and that can hoop. And one of them is named Donovan Mitchell. Just like how Luka was giving the Clippers cups and buckets and all throughout the series, you're going to deal with those same problems from the Jazz this entire series, because Donovan is not going anywhere. Donovan is aggressive. Donovan is assertive. Donovan can create his own shot, can get his own shot, and coming off the pick and roll. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Now, one thing that maybe I'm naive to continue to be surprised by this, but where is this perimeter defense that the Clippers were supposed to have, right? Remember when the Clippers were first assembled? Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Patrick Beverley. They were supposed to be 3 wing defenders, perimeter defenders that were able to switch and lock up your best shooting guard, your best small forward, your best point guard. And then they ended up adding Rondo this year. Where is that perimeter defense? I just watched Luka cook you for 35 a night in the last series, and he's done it 2 consecutive years. But maybe some people were like, oh, but that's Luka. Luka's just that good. Like nobody else can do what Luka Doncic does. Okay, that sounds good on paper. That sounds good in theory. But then I just watched Donovan cooking for 45 and 35 coming in one half. So where is this dominant Clippers perimeter defense? Where is this dominant Clippers, lockdown defenders? Once they get a switch and Luke Kennard's in front of Donovan, that man sees blood in the water. That man that man is in attack mode. That man, get out the way. And that's exactly what I'm seeing every rip down the court. He's just like, man, just ISO, get out the way. We gonna me and you, mano a mano. I'm giving you these cups no matter whether you want them or not. And that's exactly what's taking place. And so, I just want to know, when is Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? Like sometimes they go to sleep during the game, it seems like. It seems like as great as Kawhi Leonard is, especially, he seems to like take lapses or during time. I mean, there's times in the games where he's not very assertive. I see this with a lot with this version of LeBron James as well, where they just kind of like, I guess they call it letting the game come to them. But when Donovan saw his team needed him the most, and that's the thing about like some of the greats, the all-time greats, when their team needs them the most, they don't just go and hide in the corner or go lull asleep or, stay out the way. They go and make things happen. Donovan's team was down in the first half. Like at halftime, what was the Jazz down? They were down they lost the first quarter by 7, and they lost the second quarter by 6. They're down 13 at halftime. And so what Donovan does is says, hey, guys, I got this. Don't worry about it. I got this. And so when the second half, third quarter, they blitzed the Clippers. They won that quarter 32-19. They cut the lead. The lead was gone. And then in the fourth quarter, they put them to bed and won the game by 3 points. All behind Donovan Mitchell's assertiveness. I mean, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George didn't have terrible games. I mean, Kawhi finished with 23, 7-3. Paul George had 20, 10-2. But he looked more like Pandemic P than Paul George. I mean, I just don't know. When you have guys of their caliber, you can't fall asleep, and you can't allow a guy to get off like that. Like it just seems ridiculous to me that Donovan Mitchell or Luka Doncic. Now, don't get me wrong, the superstars in the NBA game is made for guys to get buckets. Like that's not a coincidence. That's not by accident. That is by design. The NBA game is designed to allow the bucket getters to get buckets. So that there's no surprise there. But to allow Donovan Mitchell to just continue to rip you off and off and off, and there's no defensive game plan to slow this down. I have a problem with that. That goes back to coaching. And also Kawhi Leonard switching too much. And let's talk about Kawhi Leonard for a second. Because Kawhi Leonard, at the end of the game, I don't know if you guys were watching, but at the end of the game, Kawhi Leonard had a chance to tie the ball game. They're down 3 points. It was 112-109. They're down 3 points. Utah elects not to foul. One, the Clippers still have a timeout left. It's like 20 seconds left in the game. The Clippers still have a timeout left. The Jazz elect not to foul. Kawhi Leonard, with the final 10 seconds, decides to pass the ball to Marcus Morris, or whichever Morris brother they got. I think the Lakers got one, the Clippers got the other. Whichever Morris Sr. is the one he passed it to. He passed to Morris Sr. He gets his shot blocked and then throws off a prayer, and it was over. Rudy Gobert, hell of a defensive stance, hell of a defensive play. But my thing is, why in the world is Kawhi Leonard passing the ball? You are supposed to be Kawhi Leonard. You're supposed to be Mamba mentality. You're supposed to be the best player on the team because the previous possession, when the Jazz had the ball, they're up 3. Guess what? Donovan, with 2 guys on him, decided to shoot to try to put them up 5 and put the nail in the coffin. Now, obviously, he missed, but he was the aggressor. He was the one putting the fate of his team in his hands. Kawhi Leonard put the fate of his team in Morris Sr.'s hands. What's up with that? Why are you passing the ball? And that Marcus Morris there, that's who they have. Why are you passing the ball in that situation? Somebody explain that to me. Put your thoughts in the chat. Explain to me why in the world would Kawhi Leonard pass the ball in the final seconds of the game? I don't understand that. That one is mind-blowing to me. That one I just simply do not understand. So yeah, but Donovan Mitchell, I think he is the next superstar in the NBA. I think it's cemented. I think it's stamped now. His team had the best record in the league. He was the best player on the team with the best record, even though he did miss a chunk of games. I want to say Donovan missed 20 games in a row to end the season, and then the first playoff game of this year. They haven't lost a playoff game since. They lost that first game to John Morant and the Grizzlies, and then Donovan and the Jazz have been, stomping through people ever since. They stomped through the Grizzlies series 4 straight games, and then they put up a heck of a performance against the Clippers last night. Now somebody asked, salute to you, Orlando. Oh, salute to you, brother. Are the Nets winning tomorrow? Yeah, they're probably going to win. I want to say game 3, the Bucks will take it because the Bucks, I feel like they have some pride, right? They'll be back at home. You're down 0-2. You can't, you're going to lose the series, right? But you can't go down 0-3. Not in your first game at home. Not when you have a 2-time league MVP. Not when you have a guy on a $100 million contract or 2 other guys on $100 million contracts and Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. Not when you're supposed to have pride, right? Like the Bucks still have a sense of pride on their team, right? Like you got to still have a sense of pride, right? Like there's no way, as good as Brooklyn is, they don't have James Harden right now. He's resting. He's hurt. So with that being said, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving is a hell of a duo, but they're a duo that can be beat. Now, when James Harden's there, it's kind of hard to beat all 3 of them. I ain't gonna lie. It's just that hard. But with those 2, you got to at least think you have a puncher's chance if, and this is a big if your 2-time league MVP plays like a 2-time league MVP. He's got to play like it. Giannis, it's been 3-4 years now, man. We've got to fix the jump shot. We know you can do that big, long Euro step. We know you can dunk. We know you can do all that stuff in the paint. But that jump shot's got to come. Like this is the league of shooters. The best teams in the league in the NBA in 2021 have shooters. They have guys that can shoot. They don't have just guys that can dunk. Your best player has to be able to handle the ball and play on the perimeter, i.e. shoot. And Giannis can't do that. And he's the Bucks' best player. And that they will always struggle in a playoff scenario as long as your best player cannot play on the perimeter. Your best player can't shoot free throws. He can't play on the perimeter, i.e. can't shoot. And that's always going to hinder the Bucks. That's always going to hinder Giannis. You can't shoot in 2021. Kevin Durant is snatching. Now, I'm not telling you to be Kevin Durant. Nobody's Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's the best in the world right now. Nobody's that. 7 foot, snatching, pulling up threes, doing whatever. But he's been doing that for over a decade now. Nobody can do it like KD. Nobody's ever done it like KD before. And nobody, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a while before we see another guy do it like KD. But Giannis, you got to come back with something, man. You got to come back with something. No surprise about Paul George. And he comes and goes. Kawhi is a different question and puzzling. I appreciate it. Yeah, Kawhi, man, he just disappears during games. Kawhi, don't get me wrong. Kawhi Leonard is a great player, Hall of Fame player. But he disappears during games. Like there are times where the other player, the best player on the other team is getting off. and Kawhi Leonard is nowhere to be found. Now, when a lot of times I will say, though, especially in the Dallas series in the last 2 years, when the series is on the line, okay, backs against the wall, down 0-2, down 3-2, whatever, Kawhi does show up. Kawhi comes and brings his lunch pail and decides, all right, it's time to win. It's time to get down. And he does that. But other time, but I need you to be that from the jump. That's the only problem I have with Kawhi. I need you to be that guy when the series is on the line, that guy when the backs are against the wall, that guy from game one. Because you sitting there watching Donovan Mitchell get off of 35 in the second half and you finish with 20 points, that's a problem. It's bad enough you guys are supposed to be the best wing duo since Jordan and Pippen, and you add Rondo, who's supposed to be a solid defender, and Patrick Beverly, who Russell Westbrook told us years ago, Patrick Beverly be tricking y'all. Patrick Beverly tricked us and thinking he plays defense. Russ told us that years ago. He said, man, Pat Bev is tricking y'all, man. That man don't play no defense. Just be out there throwing his body around, flailing. He said, that man is tricking y'all, and he wasn't lying. I feel duped, bamboozled, led astray, run amok by Patrick Beverly. Shout out to Kevin Campbell, man. He says the Bucks need Holiday and Middleton averaging 25 behind Giannis in strong bench presence. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. They need, and that's the thing. That's the thing about the playoffs. The playoffs, the bench players play better at home. Oh, I'm not going to say the bench players. The role players, normally in the playoffs, role players, and even during the regular season, role players play better at home. So that's why I'm expecting the Bucks to compete and win game 3. I could be totally wrong. They could, go and fold. But they're going home. Game 3 is in Milwaukee. Normally, role players, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton has been horrible, by the way. Let me put that up before I get into this. Chris Middleton is on a $180 million contract and has been horrible, like purely garbage. I don't have his stats in front of me right now, but I want to say he's shooting like 30% from the field. He's shooting 30% from the field or something ridiculous like that. And the Nets as a team are shooting 50% from the field. So the Nets as a team, not KD individually or Kyrie individually, the Nets as a team are shooting 50% from the field, and Chris Middleton is shooting like 30%. So let's throw that out there. And he's on a $180 million contract. So we can't just ignore that. That is something that plays a factor. But role players typically play better at home. And so I'm expecting Chris Middleton to be one of those guys to play better at home. Him, Drew Holiday, he's got his work cut out for him because he's got to stay in front of Kyrie Irving. And I'm going to just tell you guys right now, that's an impossible job. like that is not a job for the week. That is an impossible job. And if James Harden decides to come back this series, they might not need him. He got to be in front of James. So he gets Kyrie or James, and that is not a picnic. like that is not an assignment nobody in this world wants, right? So, blessings out to Drew Holiday. They're probably not going to get much from him offensively when he's trying to stay in front of two of the best guards in the world, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But they have to play better. There's no other. This won't be a competitive series if those two do not play better. Those two guys are on $100 million contracts. Drew Holiday is on like a $150 million contract. Chris Middleton is on a $180 million contract. Say what you want, but contracts matter. So if you're on a deal that big, I need you to play to that deal. I need you to play better. But see, that's the thing about the playoffs. Like I said, playoffs, role players typically play better. They typically play better at home. But also what the playoffs does is separate the good players from the stars. The stars from the superstars. Because the superstars come out during the playoffs. The stars play well. The stars will, show. But Kevin Durant's a superstar. Kyrie Irving's a superstar. James Harden, even though he's not playing, he's a superstar. And that's got 3 of them. And they make their names during the playoffs. Chris Middleton, he's a good player. Drew Holiday is a good player. They're not Kevin Durant. They're not Kyrie Irving. Giannis is a star. Hell, some people even think he's a superstar. He don't show up there. He ain't Kevin Durant. He ain't like the superstars are Kevin Durant, the LeBron James, even though he's out in the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard is proven to be a superstar during the playoffs. Hell, Donovan Mitchell is making a name during the playoffs. Do you guys know that Donovan Mitchell, back to him real quick, because that's the title of this video. Do you guys know that Donovan Mitchell, in his very, very short NBA career, very, very small playoff experience, has 4 games of over 40 points? He's tied for the most 40-point games in Utah Jazz history, 40-point playoff games in Utah Jazz history. Donovan Mitchell was tied with Karl Malone. We do know Karl Malone is like the second all-time leading scorer. It goes Kareem, Karl Malone, then LeBron. And Donovan Mitchell has already tied Karl Malone's franchise playoff record with 40-point games. Like that. Donovan's like 25 years old. like he's that good, that fast. He's that good, that fast. He's D-Wade 2.0. So that's what I'm saying. He is third in active players and points per game in the playoff. Donovan's third. It's Kevin Durant, I want to say, is number 1, and then LeBron James, and then Donovan. Donovan's third in active players and points per game in the playoffs. He's been that great. And not to mention, like Kevin said, I call him D-Wade 2.0, and D-Wade is a part owner of the Jazz. So he's hanging around the facilities. He's at the playoff games, him and Gabrielle Union on the sideline. Donovan is a dog. Donovan is sick. He is really like that. And I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Donovan. And he went to Louisville, so it only makes it that much better. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Now, moving on to the other playoff series. That's the Sixers and the Hawks. Now, the Hawks are like my sleeper favorite team, right? My favorite team in the NBA is the Lakers. But if I had to pick a second favorite team, it would be the Atlanta Hawks. And you want to know why? It's because I've been a big Trae Young fan since he was in high school. When Trae Young was drafted, obviously Trae Young will forever be in connection with Luka Doncic, right? I'm one of the reasons, I'm a person who will always forever connect Trae Young and Luka Doncic, simply because when Trae Young was drafted, I knew nothing about Luka Doncic. I was happy Trae Young went to Atlanta instead of Dallas, even though Atlanta was terrible, right? They were garbage. I was happy because Trae Young seemed to fit Atlanta. If you ever been to the city of Atlanta, it's one of my favorite cities. Trae Young seemed to fit them. Trae Young fit Atlanta better than I feel like Luka would have fit Atlanta. Luka is a good Dallas player. You know, he come in behind Dirk Nowitzki. He's got that European superstar, whatever. But anyway, they'll forever be linked. And I'm on record saying, man, people are hyping up Luka, whatever. But don't forget about Trae Young. Trae Young is really like that. And so anyway, that's how Atlanta became my second favorite team, I guess, if a team that I root for. And they're in a series against Joel Embiid and the 76ers. And is this a series? This is a series that is fun. The Sixers won last night, 118-102, but they really pulled away in the fourth quarter, essentially. Fourth quarter is when they kind of made this. I mean, it looks like a blowout, 16 points. But this game was close. Hell, Atlanta was leading most of the game, to be honest. But Shake Milton and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid finished with 40, 13, and 2. Steph Curry played out of his mind. He hit 5 or 6 threes. He had 21 points. Shake Milton had 14 points in 14 minutes in this game. And that was the difference. Atlanta had, solid overall performances from Trae Young, 21 and 11. Kevin Huerter off the bench, 20 and 2. Gallinari had 21 off the bench. John Collins needs to have a better game. He had 8 points and 10 rebounds. But this series is going to be fun because here's the thing about this series. This series is going to be a ton of fun because both stars on the teams, Joel Embiid for the Sixers and Trae Young for the Atlanta Hawks, thrive in the villain role. They're guys that play really good villains, right? We saw what Trae Young did in the New York Knicks series. We saw him hushing the crowd, taking a bow when they eliminated him, doing all kinds of antics, telling them they'll see him in the A, and then they handled their business when they got back to Atlanta. He thrives, seems to really thrive in the villain role. And we know, now Joel Embiid has calmed down a ton, but we know that Joel Embiid loves being the villain, right? Trolling people on Twitter, getting into it with Marcus Smart or whoever. Like, it doesn't matter. We remember early in his career, he was always trying to get a date with Rihanna. Like, Joel Embiid loves being the villain. And so now you have two very highly entertaining characters that are really good at basketball, like really good at basketball, going at each other, and their teams going at it for a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, Joel Embiid has a slight tear in his meniscus, but does he? Like, does he really? Remember my last video yesterday, I said, man, Joel Embiid, like, I think Atlanta might really end up winning this series, because you can't expect Joel Embiid, because the night before he had 35 and like 13. I was like, you can't expect him to do that every game of this series with that tear in his meniscus. Like, you can't expect that simply because the man is hurt. And all he does is go out and get 40. He said, all right, Jeff, I heard you. Now I'm going to just go out and get 40. Now, he said, I had 38 the game before. Now I'm going to just get 40, because that tearing meniscus, it doesn't even matter. He's that dominant. He's that great. I mean, he was bullying cats. Like Clint Capella, Gallinari tried to guard him one time. Like, he was just, I mean, he looked like Shaq. Like, the man looked like Shaq against Atlanta. And that is a series that's going to be the most entertaining series. I think Clippers in Utah is pretty entertaining. The Phoenix and their series against the Nuggets and the Joker, who won MVP, is really entertaining. But over in the Eastern Conference, I really like the Hawks versus the Sixers. I'm going to keep an eye on that one. Because also Ben Simmons. Now, I've been a big critic of Ben Simmons, simply because, just like I get on Giannis, you can't be, and Ben Simmons is technically a guard. You cannot be a guard in 2021. A superstar guard, because some people think Ben Simmons is a superstar, or like borderline superstar, or star, or whatever. A star guard in the NBA with that much athleticism, that much God-given ability, that much talent, and not ever improve your jump shot. Like, Ben Simmons has been the same player for 5 years. He's literally, look at his numbers, look at his impact, look at everything across the board. He has literally been the same exact player since he stepped into the league. There is no difference between Ben Simmons, at least, I mean, not visually. Prove me wrong. Like, somebody leave in the chat if I'm wrong. There is no difference between Ben Simmons as a freshman at LSU and Ben Simmons in year 4 or 5 or whatever he is in the NBA. There's absolutely no difference. And to me, that will be the downfall of the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid is a beast. Their supporting cast is pretty good. Seth Curry, even though Danny Green gets on my nerves, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, Shake Milton can give you some buckets sometimes. Tyrese Maxey. Like, they got ball players. Dwight Howard comes in and enforcer off the bench. They got some ball players on the 76ers. But they don't have a second guy that is at that star/superstar like category. It's supposed to be Ben Simmons. But you're telling me a guy who goes out and scores 4 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds in 35 minutes is your second fiddle? 4 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 rebounds at 6'10", and you're a guard. Now, I get it. He's tasked with the assignment of guarding Trae Young, or chasing Trae Young around, or trying to stay in front of him, or whatever. I get that. It's a tough assignment. Not easy at all. I'm not even going to pretend like that's an easy assignment, because it's not. Trae Young does a lot of moving without the ball. Trae Young comes off a ton of screens. Trae Young does this. Trae Young does that. And I get it. I do. But 4 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, that just can't be acceptable. It can't be. There's no way. Not when you're Ben Simmons. Not when you're supposed to be the second best player on his team when Joel Embiid on a bad knee is scoring 40. I mean, this series, if Ben Simmons was more reliable, at least on the offensive end, this wouldn't even be a series. This series wouldn't even be a series. They'd run the Hawks off the court because Joel Embiid's the best player in the series. And Trae Young's probably second, but the star power of Ben Simmons and in combination with Joel Embiid is supposed to run the Hawks off the court. It's supposed to send the Hawks packing. It's supposed to send the Hawks back to Atlanta. That's what it's supposed to do. But you can't get real consistency out of Ben Simmons. I don't know, man. Ben Simmons, man, like I said, he's been the same player for 5 years. It's like, what do you do during the offseason? Questions for Ben Simmons, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis. Because Anthony Davis stays hurt, and that's the reason why I asked. What do you guys do during the offseason? Like when there's no basketball, I get it. You probably go out and party because these guys are young. Probably go out and party a little bit. I think Giannis has like a kid. Probably hang out with your kid a lot. Spend a lot of time with your child. Anthony Davis has a kid. Spend a lot of time with your child and stuff. I get it. But when do you work on your game? What parts of your game are you improving? Anthony Davis, what part of your body are you improving? Ben Simmons, Giannis Antetokounmpo, what parts of your game are you improving? If you couldn't shoot in year 1 and you still can't shoot any better in year 5, what the hell are you doing? Giannis, if you couldn't shoot in year 1 and you still can't shoot in year 7, 8, whatever what are you doing during the offseason? I don't get it. I do not get it. You guys are the most talented basketball players in the world. What are you doing to improve your game? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. at the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because we upload every single day. We're here every single morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, to talk all things sports. I'll post some more stuff about the college football playoff. It looks like the college football playoff is expanding, and it looks like it's going to be 12 teams. And so be sure to tune into the Black Boss Channel to hear my thoughts on that because I have a lot to say about that. The college football playoff is expanding to 12 teams. Leave your thoughts in the chat if you want to hear about that because that is going to be interesting. Thank you guys for tuning in again, waking up with me this morning. I'll see you again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. Thank you guys again. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. I'll see you next time. Peace.